how technical should a product manager, because that is always a debate, right? Should I become a technical product manager?
What are the tools that are available in your repository? You need not know.
Top 3 myths that you think is about AI that you would like to burst.
So there are many things that needs to be taken into account. You can create a prototype in an hour, but you need.
One of the so-called influencers said that, we should right now focus only on the application layer side of it.
Not everyone would get an opportunity to work on AI research or building.
The other big terminology which is doing rounds is AI agents.
I would say agents again is not a new thing. They've been there.
Do you see product management influenced by getting an AI agent in terms of their day-to-day work?
AI tools being used in the workflow is a huge
impact of AI on SaaS is?
At a broad level, my view is we are going towards.
All right, we are in this interesting times, right, where we have one new solution, one new model, one new application coming up every single week, and we are all overwhelmed in terms of, okay, how do I keep pace with this new set of information coming in? And that is where I kind of, in conversation today with Vellanki Sriharsha, who is a product leader with Z, and he comes with tremendous amount of experience in building products in the OTT space, supply chain space, and with deep expertise in AI and Gen AI specifically. And today in this conversation that we have been having for the last hour, we have covered everything around what are the how does even a product manager, for example, get started in their AI journey. How do you even get started to playing around, getting to know what is AI, how you can apply it in terms of use cases around you. We kind of touch up deeply around agentic AI, right? What does the future may look like? What are some of the tools that Harsha uses? And all of that you can find not only in the episode, but also in the subtitles. So welcome to this episode. And so we kind of get started in this conversation with Harsha. So in this conversation that we start, welcome Harsha to this episode.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Yes, and yeah. I've heard so much about your expertise and applications and the workshops that you have done in the AI space. So super happy to have you on this conversation today.
Likewise, look forward to a great conversation.
All right, Harsha, so let's jump into this, right? Right now we are in a phase, it to be honest, if I have to pick up a word, it's like tsunami of information, right? I mean, there seems to be new models every day. There seems to be new applications. There is just whether it is a big tech, whether it is a small player across countries, right? And of course, I think in the last couple of weeks, DeepSeek has disrupted the whole thing, right? So if I just kind of, navigate through what it is today in the middle of all this, first of all, what is your primary feeling?
To be frank, I would say it is both scary and exciting at the same time. Scary because in a way, as you rightly said, we are in a tsunami, or I would say we are in middle of a storm wherein we are at the eye of the storm of sorts, wherein everything is changing drastically and we as humans are not accustomed with this rate of change as such. So everyone being able to adapt to this level of change is very difficult, and we'll have to figure ways out on that. But the exciting part is now we get an opportunity which is once in a lifetime sort of an opportunity to reimagine everything that we've done till now. Be it your from a product manager's lens, let's say, be it your customer journeys, be it the workflows that you are in, or for that matter, the work life itself being defined differently is possible right now. So that's the exciting part. But yeah, it comes with its own challenges. And would say it is very important that we at least explore things out, experiment with them out, else we won't know what is actually happening. So that's very essential, and that's what I would say is.
Yeah, that's right. But tell me, you especially, I mean, you've been into AI for some time now, tech leader, product leader. How are in your ways, how are you processing this? How are you internalizing this? Like every single day you are bombarded it on your digital social media feeds, newspapers, news everywhere around. And then you have looking at your competition, your leadership is constantly asking what we can do better. So as a leader, as an individual, how are you processing it?
The first thing is being able to be on top of the curve or being able to keep up with what is happening. That's very important. So there are multiple newsletters out there which keep publishing things. There are channels on YouTube and all which keeps giving you right insights on what this model is good about or what is happening in the world in general. So that's the first, let's say, top of the funnel of sorts. But you can't experiment with all the tools that are there in the world. You will still need to narrow down onto few of them to see what works and what doesn't work for your use case, for your requirements per se. So that's the second step, which is go try them out. The more you try, the more you figure out, okay, these out of 100 tools that you try, only 5 of them might still stick with you, but those 5 will add a huge value to you. So the key is one, exploring and then exploiting the ones which you think would add the most value to you. Last but not the least, the aspect of we tend to look at it from the perspective of how can I use in my daily life. That's very important. But at the same time, how can I use it for my problems or the business problems that we are solving or the customer problems we are solving? That perspective being brought in is also very important. That's how I generally tend to approach it as well.
Correct. And if I may ask, right, I mean, you said that you probably look at a bunch of newsletters, sources, tools, and then try it out. But how do you distill? Because see, you have your day job, where you have to work, and then there is this the tsunami that needs to be, you need to swim through that.
Correct.
So how do you kind of break it down?
One is you need to keep some time aside for this for sure. At least I put at least 1 hour a day of sorts to keep a track of what is happening, try out few things, read more about it, understand what is happening and what's not happening. And the good thing is you can even create your own newsletter summarizers today, wherein you can just get what is that interests you, or what would suit your requirement as such, and accordingly try out from them. So that's one. The second part is you can't obviously try all of them. What I generally tend to do is, let's say if the same thing is appearing in 10 different newsletters that I follow or 10 different YouTube channels that I follow, then it means it has a good significance. There are a few tools which are mentioned in one place or the other. Many times it might not even be of value to me because it could be a promo that's being done, or it could be a tool that is not that significant impact also. So you narrow down on the one which is being repeated 80% of the times. At least try them out so that you know, okay, what is the value that it is giving you out, and accordingly figure them out.
Got it. Okay.
So you need to narrow it down is the thing.
Yeah, and maybe to help our users, what would be your top 3 picks on the newsletters that you follow, and maybe let's say some few YouTube channels that you follow?
Sure. I would say Rundown AI is a newsletter which is pretty good. I'll share the links at a later point of time.
Sure.
And the other one is Moonshots and Mindsets by Peter Diamandis as a podcast. It's a beautiful one and everyone should look into it.
Okay.
The other is Joe Stoll's newsletter. That's a great newsletter to look into. I think these 3 cover the major ones. Then there is one more called as Generative AI Newsletter. That's also a good one to look for.
Okay, and thank you. That is very helpful. And what is one latest AI tool that you have explored more recently and have fallen in love with it?
I think O1 ChatGPT has been a great tool, no doubt about it. But a tool which kind of became a unexpected sleeper hit of sorts, or unexpectedly great tool. Napkin.ai is one tool where you can actually create beautiful visuals out for your presentations or anything, and it helps out put your thoughts together, visualize them well. So that's a great tool.
Yeah, I use it for my infographics.
It's a beautiful tool.
It's a beautiful tool. Yeah, that's right. Now, I think that's a great way of, I think we already kind of shared a few resources and all that. Now, I also take this AI product management training, right? And a lot of practicing product managers, if I have to just give you an analogy of that, the feeling is like, in the movie Jab We Met, there is this character of Kareena Kapoor where she's the Geet, and she says that, train chhoot rahi hai. Right? Yep. So somewhere I think that is how, a lot of product managers today resonate that feeling. So when somebody is just getting started on this journey, right? So that उनकी train नहीं छूट जाए, where do you suggest they should start?
One is from a, as I was saying earlier also, start exploring with any of tools. You need not get married to the fact that I need to just use ChatGPT or Claude or any of them. Get started with one of the tools. You will see the value that it is adding to you. You need not understand the underlying mechanisms of how it is working. You need not understand how transformers as such work. You need not understand what is RLHF as such is. All of these are not necessary for you to get started. Start with them, see how you can actually use in your day-to-day process. Let's say, can you create a ChatGPT agent which can actually create PRDs for you, or it can do brainstorming with you. It becomes your partner in crime for brainstorming different ideas for the features. So start with that, then you will start realizing, okay, I can actually use this for 10 other things also, and I can actually implement it for my customers also. So thing is, you can't think of jumping into using GenAI, or not just GenAI, any AI model as such, without you experiencing it yourself and seeing the value that it would add to you. Only then will you be able to figure out this is the right use case where I need to use it. Else, it would be a case where just for the sake of it, you're using GenAI or any of these models, burning a lot of money, because these models are not gonna come for free. Okay, DeepSeek is cheaper, but still you'll shell out money without any ROI coming out of it. So it's essential that you actually look at the use cases and then pick it up. So if you are someone who is getting started, one, start using these tools. Two, there is a mindset change that you need to bring in as well. You as a product manager can't just say, I'll think of user journeys, I'll think of user problems alone. You should think full stack, which is you should be looking at the user problems, problem discovery, customer discovery, the solution. You can now create prototypes out of using these tools. And being able to create those prototypes is a huge edge for you. You can use tools like Galileo to create UI UX elements and put your thoughts out or articulate them well to your designers also. So that it's not that you're taking the job of a designer or something, you're actually helping them understand your views in a better manner. Not every product manager is good at painting or drawing the UIs also. So then you can actually create, understand the tech aspect of the implementation side of the world, communicate well with your development team also. Last but not the least, you should be able to sell and hence use them for your marketing, incorporate them in your marketing funnels also, create product descriptions, many other things that could be brought in. So thing is, you need to have that mindset that I am owning the end-to-end piece, not just the user journey part of it. Second, use these tools wherever it is applicable. You need not reinvent the wheel every time.
Yeah, no, that's a fair way. And yes, there are, tools for AI, tools of AI for PMs. I think there is a plenty of leverage that we have over there, right? Now, switching gears a little bit, Harsha, so this is again a very, I think this is because there are too many unknowns and people don't know well about it, is that if I want to get started, I'm a product manager, I want to get started on the AI journey. The first thing that we say is that go and find that use case where you need to start using AI, right? So if you have to, do this all over again, let's say, or for any of your features or products, how do you get started to see whether this use case that I'm looking at, does it really need AI? And, in that journey, not only educating yourself, but also educating people, whether it is your leadership, whether it is other stakeholders. If you could just walk through, even if you want to kind of take an example of something you did or something you're aware of.
First, I'll just divide two parts. One is AI is a very broad term. So when we say implementing AI, the recommendation algorithm that was being implemented by e-commerce industry, let's say 10 years back, is still an AI model that is being implemented. We are now talking of Gen AI. The difference is now you are able to interact with it in a human manner. It is able to think, at least showcase that it is thinking aloud per se. Last but not the least, it is able to converse with you or reason with you as well. So that's the major shift that has happened with Gen AI coming into play. And it can generate things out of thin air of sorts. As in, you give a small prompt, it can give you an entire essay. It can generate a video, image, many things that can come up. So the point is whether first understanding the distinction of what are the different types of AIs that are available out there and how you can use them is the very important part. Because what I see happening a lot is people generally tend to jump the guns and say, hey, I'll just get started with Gen AI, I'll apply Gen AI everywhere. I'm using GenAI to solve a particular problem. I'm using GenAI to solve a route optimization problem in supply chain or forecasting. That's not necessary. You would use those models where it is applicable. Now, coming to figuring out those use cases itself, the easiest way of looking at it is the level of, I would say, variability that exists in your user journey. Now, if we take an example, a case where you are asking your user to upload a KYC document and you are done with it, you don't need GenAI over there at all as such. But if you have a scenario where you are like a customer support use case, that is a case where the more human it becomes, the better it is from a use case standpoint, also from an experience standpoint, and users are happy with interacting in a human language rather than clicking on 10 different buttons for them to reach a particular problem being solved for there. Right? So those are the use cases where it is very useful. However, there are also use cases where earlier we weren't able to solve them, but now we are able to solve because of GenAI. One example is subtitling as a use case. So subtitling, for everyone's reference, is a way of localizing your content to different languages. The original language could be Hindi, but I don't understand Hindi. I might want it to be in English or some other language. So being able to see them, right? Earlier, there were tools which were creating subtitles, but they were not delivering the value or delivering the accuracy. And they are missing out the nuances, especially from idioms, phrases, and all of these being taken into account. With GenAI, since it understands and it's been trained on trillions of words, it is able to understand all of those linkages and able to translate them better. So that's a space where this actually fits very well. Exactly. Or in case of supply chain, if you look at it as a use case, there are companies where you get emails for your orders and then someone sits and types them out. Earlier, there are RPA tools which were used for doing all of this. But again, for every new client that you're onboarding, if the format is different, then you would have to sit and code it so that it works for next time. But with GenAI, now you don't need to do that. It understands the context and be able to do the translation. So it's like a universal translator that's coming out there. So the point is, identifying the use cases is, in my view, it's all about, one, how big a problem it is. Two, is GenAI even needed to solve that problem? Or there are traditional ways which are far more better, efficient, cost-effective, faster for you to solve the problem, then use those methods. There is a hybrid approach that I generally tend to suggest, which is, if you don't have expertise in one particular area, but you know for a fact that ideal state scenario is I actually implement an ML model rather than using GenAI, start with GenAI, use that as your first step, prove that it actually works. Prove that there is value and merit in doing it, and then get into the next steps of creating a standalone point solution for that particular problem. So that's how I would approach it.
Down. Yeah, no, I think those are, kind of comes very naturally to say that is the problem complex enough for which you can use this technology. And I think I would like to add one more thing. For example, the cost of mistake, right? For example, if you show a wrong subtitle, for example, in certain places, it is not going to be costly.
Correct.
Versus, let's say in a healthcare, if you are going to diagnose a wrong disease, for example, the cost of mistake is very high there.
True.
Right? True. So that would be another lens that I would put to say whether and even if this model mature enough. Correct?
Absolutely.
Right?
Correct.
And of course, costing continues to be a big deterrent or an enabler.
Correct.
Right. But how do you think, in your experience, that now you've been working with AI and Gen AI for quite some time, how do you think is the expectations from senior leadership in terms of understanding or in terms of ROI?
So from an understanding standpoint, I think people are understanding what it is useful for and what it is not useful for. Okay. How can it be implemented and all of that. The maturity levels have increased drastically from what it was, let's say, 1 year back or so also. Okay. But again, not at every level. As in, if you are part of a product and tech center or product team or a tech team, the leaders over there will obviously understand it much better than someone who is coming from a business side or a category management side of the world. And it's nothing wrong in that at all. It's more of our duty to educate them also on what is feasible and what's not feasible, or what is likely to work out and what might not work out well. The second point, however, is there is this website called there is an AI for that. So, and everyone thinks there is an AI for every problem that's there in the world. So that's the bigger challenge. Explaining that okay, everyone comes up with this expectation. Why can't I use GenAI and solve it? Can't ChatGPT solve this problem for me? That becomes the first question that comes up in any problem solving scenario. ChatGPT can solve, definitely, and with O1 or O3, everything that's coming out in the market, it might solve much better than many of the human beings that are there in the world right now. But the thing is, can you use it? Can it be productionized? Or all of that is something that one needs to understand before even jumping the guns of saying we'll use ChatGPT to solve this problem. That is one. The second is, as you rightly said, ROI becomes a very important part. There are, I worked on a few projects where we worked for figuring out how it would work out. We created few products out of it, and we didn't launch it as such because we weren't seeing any ROI coming out of the cost that we are investing in calling these APIs. Okay. So at least it's about a year back or so, wherein the investment that we were making per every query that the user makes versus the revenue that we would generate out per user was drastically different. Right now it might still be there, but still, again, it's still costly and making money, especially in the Indian context, becomes very difficult when you are spending in dollars to pay OpenAI or any other model as such. So the point is, the applicability becomes very nuanced as such, because if it is having a huge scale and you are not getting revenue out of it, or you're not saving cost, then it doesn't make any sense. And even in that scenario, there is a lot of change management that you need to handle. So if you are just doing for the sake of reducing the cost, but then you are realizing that the entire journey itself of retraining the team members, getting them educated on the new platform that you are building or such, if that is huge, then again might not be a viable thing to do, because no one, if it's not adopted, then the product is a failure. Correct. So the point is, ROI, not just in terms of the cost benefit analysis, but also the adoption aspect becomes very important. And most of the times we tend to force fit things also, which is, hey, can I have a chatbot for this use case? You might not need a chatbot there. The traditional browse and buy experience is far better because people are visual in nature and they are happy with that. You unnecessarily need not plug in it. It is a good thing to have, I won't deny it. But at this point, is this something you need to do at a scale? Might not be. You can experiment out and see how the results are different. Do an A/B test out of it. Correct. So, and just one extra point, you always won't have ROI available on day one. You need to experiment out to figure out how much would it cost, what is the effort or viability of the product that you are thinking of, and more importantly, will it even resonate with the audience that you are trying to resonate with. So do a small experiment and then figure out how you want to proceed ahead, rather than saying there is no ROI, or saying it is going to be the best product in the world. It's not. It can't be both on day one. Correct.
In fact, I remember reading a McKinsey report very recently which said that 74% of investments that enterprises have done, they have not seen any ROI. Right? Yeah, I mean, it's in pockets where, some processes have been optimized, some customer experience has been better. But as you said, in a long haul, it is still work in progress, right? I mean, they really haven't seen like absolute ROI coming in over that.
Correct.
Now, with that, I have a follow-up question. I think you took this example where you said you did not see the returns coming in or the revenue generating in. So if you just step back as a product manager, right? I mean, we have some set pirate metrics, vanity metrics, which we all follow, right? Now, what changes with AI?
I would say frankly, not much changes with AI coming into play. You would still look at your engagement metrics, your acquisition metrics, and the monetization metrics for sure at every level of it per se. One extra thing that you would start looking at is from a performance standpoint, which is how big or what is the latency coming into play. Because earlier especially when there is a chat sort of an experience, you had traditional chatbots which are decision tree sort of experiences. There is not much latency over there as such. However, here you have latency coming into play because you are calling a API which is doing all the intelligence work and getting you back the responses and all. So that becomes one key aspect to look into. The second is the cost of running running these services itself, and it can be directly attributable also because it's per token that you are being charged for. The third thing is queries per user, sort of a metric being looked at also, because the thing is, most of the times when you launch the app and it is a conversational interface, just because of the hype or the excitement, people might come and try, but not many people would be returning back to such experiences also. It's not a WhatsApp that you are using day in and day out, so that network effect might not exist. So thing is, how are your team members or the customers adopting to that experience? When it comes to a B2B sort of a scenario, it is slightly different. It is number of tasks being completed is what you would look at, and completed automatically without human intervention and correctly. That becomes the right metric to look at over there, because now you are saying the intelligence is with the AI and it is doing not just decision support, sometimes it is autonomous enough or it has agency enough to solve a particular problem, and you are giving that freedom to it, and you are making it solve it, and there is no human intervention. Then how many such instances does it actually deliver the outcome? That becomes a viewpoint on that.
Okay, and how much should a product manager know? Because there are also other things like, precisions, accuracies, like you spoke about, and there are things like false positives, false negatives. So how much should a product manager be involved in defining these metrics?
Frankly, fully involved.
Fully involved.
This is what I would say, because if it is coming in front of your customer, then you are the ones who is responsible for it. So please know what is going to come in front of. And the worst part is, earlier we had deterministic systems, now you have probabilistic system with Gen AI coming into play, and you can't expect the same response every time. So, but is the response 90% there or 80% there? If it is 80%, it can be a make or break scenario for many, especially in the B2B use cases. In B2C, the customer might still be fine with you saying hi instead of hello. That might be okay. But for B2B, it might not work out. So understanding what is the level of accuracy that your end customer is looking for, and how do you achieve it, what are the things that are going into it. So just as an example, in supply chain you have a concept called as OTIF, which is on time in full. How many times is your product being delivered? Or let's say you place an order for 100 items and 100 quantity each. Did you get all the 100 and all quantity being 100 for each of them and on time or not, is what it looks at. Now in the same manner, your customer is looking at 95% accuracy, 95% reliability, let's say 1 second latency or less than 1 second latency, so on and so forth. All of this is your product's metric, and hence your metric too. You should be able to understand why or how are these being calculated, what is the metric system that's being implemented. Everything you should be aware of it per se, and define them, monitor them as well.
Yeah, no, that is a very, very valid use case, right? Okay, now this also brings me to a more follow-up question, is that now, earlier, for example, in a very traditional product setup, you will have the engineering team, QA team, of course, the product operations or the analytics team and the product team. Now we also have new verticals like, data science, ML engineers, who are going to be working very closely with the product manager. Now, what is your take on how technical should a product manager, because that is always a debate, right? How much technical should I know? Should I become a technical product manager? So if somebody wants to build AI products, whether it is a personalization or a recommendation engine or some kind of a predictive analytics kind of a thing, how much of a technology do they need to understand?
I would say you should become an applied AI person. At least you understand what are the tools that are available in your repository. You need not know whether it is built out of, just as an example, you know what are the arrows that are there, but you need not understand how that arrow was built. So in the same manner, you need to understand how a particular recommendation model will work out, but you need not understand what was the underlying model that is implemented for it to work out and all. But it's better to have the understanding of that if possible, but you need not worry about that a lot, because your data science team is a great team who will help you out with all of them. They are the specialists. You need not be the specialist over there. But at least knowing that, okay, they have 5,000 weapons in their armory is what is needed to you, and understanding what each of them would do is helpful so that you can use them to orchestrate a right experience to your customer.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think as long as you continue to bring in the experience of, from a business perspective, what is needed, I think that is your primary this thing. And I think the trust and the camaraderie between the,
Two teams are,
the two teams is what will define success.
absolutely. But just one thing is, it's also important what is implemented or what is feasible, because many times what happens is there might be a feedback that might come from a customer and it might seem valid also, but you might want to get it delivered. But if it is in your current architecture, if it is not feasible to do it without drastically overhauling things also, then you should be aware of the effort that might be involved in it. At least you should get a sense of it. You need not know exactly, okay, it would take 67 man days for me to do it. That's fine. You need not have that. But at least knowing that, okay, this seems to be a bigger task to do. That understanding is also important, because just saying I'll come from a business standpoint or even a user standpoint won't be sufficient. You should have the perspective of all the three: business viability, customer usability, and the effort / tech viability, tech feasibility.
Yeah. And I think right now the phase where we are in, where things are still, new things are emerging every single day. I think as you and I were earlier talking about, everybody from a 20-year-old to a 60-year-old
Yeah.
are, I think the only way to learn is like roll up your sleeves, try out a bunch
Correct.
of different things so that you start getting familiarized yourself.
Absolutely correct.
Right?
So you can't so you can't do it intellectually, just, oh, this is great, I've heard in a podcast, so it is good. As long as you haven't tried it out, you won't know whether it is useful for your use case.
Yeah.
Everything that we hear in either in a podcast or a newsletter is a very broader level thing. As once you apply it or use it is when you figure out, okay, no, it's not suitable for my use case. I thought it was, but it is not.
Yeah, yeah. What are some of the, top 3 myths that you think is about AI that you would like to burst?
First thing is, AI can solve every problem in the world. At least not at the moment, that's not the case. The second thing is, if I'm able to prototype or I can build AI products in an hour, yes, you can, but that's just a prototype.
Yeah.
If you have to productionize it, boss, you need to do a lot of testing. You need to ensure that it is secure enough for your customers to be exposed to. So there are many things that needs to be taken into account. You can create a prototype in an hour, but you need 1,000 hours or so to actually productionize it with a lot of testing and feedback being taken into account, guardrails being implemented and all. Last but not the least is Gen AI is the silver bullet, which it is not. You would still need the traditional systems to be there. You need to orchestrate multiple Gen AI models to actually deliver the value, or use the traditional ML models to actually solve a problem. So you need not just, you shouldn't just think that, okay, since Gen AI is there, everything is sorted.
I agree. So yeah, those were some, great mythbusters. Now, one thing, and this is something I was reading very recently, that, currently the foundational models are kind of evolving. Those layers are, kind of evolving a lot. So one of the so-called influencers said that we should right now focus only on the application layer side of it, right? Do you agree with that? What's your take on that?
I would say not everyone would get an opportunity to work on AI research or building products like ChatGPT or these models itself. And there is a lot of research work that goes into it, and might not be a very well suited thing for a product manager also per se. From that perspective, yes, you can use them and create great applications out of these systems. Something which was not possible earlier is now made possible because of these models coming into play, and that to them getting cheaper and cheaper on a regular basis. But at the same time, you should also potentially explore the opportunities of how you can not necessarily create a model by yourself, but at least tweak it for your use case a bit more. That because all the models are more of like a general textbook that's available, but now what chapter you want to focus on or what you want to specialize in becomes different for every PM or business that you are part of. So the thing is, use cases are there and you need to start exploiting them per se. But if you jump into creating those models, do you have the money to do that becomes a bigger question. So might not be applicable for everyone to just jump onto use cases. Some should still look at building the tooling around it or building the models themselves. But vast majority will obviously be on an application level only.
Yeah. I think 60-70% of PMs are actually focused on building the application layer.
Okay.
But as we were saying, this whole AI infrastructure is kind of
Huge,
evolving huge, right? That's
correct.
again a huge opportunity area that
Absolutely.
I see.
Absolutely.
Right. Actually, moving on, since from that use case perspective, the other big terminology which is doing rounds is AI agents. Right, in the last few months, I mean, Mark Benioff is talking about digital workforce. Satya is talking about agents, literally probably becoming very intelligent and taking away a lot of those work. Can you just unpack what is this whole AI agentic thing is all about?
Sure. I would say one, agents again is not a new thing. They've been there for quite some time. Even your thermostat of sorts is kind of an agent which is taking the temperature and accordingly changing changing it as per the need or the settings that you've made. The only difference that comes with generative AI being used over there is now you have a reasoning or a logic system in place which need not be defined by rules. Earlier we were hard coding all the rules or we are defining everything by ourselves and those were working out. Now what an AI agent is, it's nothing but an LLM which can call APIs or do something on your behalf. It can think on your behalf and execute things also on your behalf. That's what an AI agent is all about. Now, why is everyone talking about this a lot or saying there is digital workforce that's coming into play is because if you look at it, most of the work that we do either has us taking a decision or us collating information and executing them, especially the knowledge work side of the world. Now, all of this could now happen via API calls or these LLMs taking those, processing the data that they are being fed and processing it and taking a decision and then executing an API again to do that thing or get something executed. With that being the case, now you have I call it as a system of cognition. You have your system of records, which is the underlying layer. This is nothing but your ERP systems also, the SAPs of the world or the Oracles of the world, which has all the data that you have. Or everything that your business is looking into. Then comes one more layer, which is the system of cognition or the agentic layer, which basically understands what the data and the user queries in a natural language per se, and being able to call other APIs. So just as an example, let's say if you today go and want to schedule a doctor's appointment, you either use a Procto or some other platform, you go and do the scheduling or call up the clinic and get it scheduled. But with agentic systems coming into play, it understands what is the schedule of the person and can automatically understand your requirement also, schedule with the right person at the right time, all of these being taken into account. You need not have a human in the loop in such scenarios. But when there is criticality, like the way you earlier alluded to in case of healthcare, if you are diagnosing someone and you are giving a wrong diagnosis, then it is a huge problem. So those cases you would still need human in the loop. So it's not about saying this just having digital workforce or just having AI agentic systems. You would have both humans as well as these. These are more like tools that you can use to automate most of the work that you would have from a day-to-day regular task, where there is not a lot of decisioning that you need to take. But it can still think of 10 different things to be brought into account and work on it clearly. But the second part is, just as another example, you can also think of it as a customer support. In customer support, the traditional parlances, you have L1, L2, L3, so on and so forth. Now, the L1 layer, where you have a lot of questions being repetitive per se, could be automated with this and the task that needs to be executed. Let's say you need to be given a refund, or you need to update the address of your delivery or something on those lines. In that case, you can have an API being called by the agent, which is in this case an LLM, doing that activity instead of someone having to sit and type it out. So that layer is the maturity that we are in a way reaching currently. Or even the voice agents are also becoming very famous right now. You can actually get calls from them. It's also having a spam problem that's coming up, but still wherever it is legit, you actually get a chance to speak to people. And this in a way democratizes the reach of the applications also, because not many people are well versed with using smartphones. For them, conversation becomes a natural way of interacting with the systems and getting things done for them. So there are pros and cons, but yes, the key part is you are able to execute things on your own from a system standpoint at least. That's what an AI agent is all about.
Yeah, that's a great way of definition. And if somebody wants to kind of understand this deeply and probably do some POCs and all that, do you recommend any tools for that?
Oh, absolutely. There are many beautiful tools that are available in the market right now, and most of them you can get started with free also.
Okay.
Like Agent.ai is one platform which is built by HubSpot's CTO Dharmesh Shah. That is a great platform.
Okay.
The second platform that I highly recommend is Mind Studio.
Uh-huh.
You can just go there, give a prompt. It will itself create an agentic system for you. You can just test it out, tweak it a bit, obviously, but yes, it's a great platform again. There is also a platform called as Voice Flow, where you can create chat interfaces, but also voice experiences out of it. So there are many such platforms that are available today. You can.
And do I need to code anything there?
No.
These are like
you need not
GUI.
code. Yeah, exactly. It is a visual studio sort of a thing. No, not even Visual Studio. I would say it is a visual experience. You just have blocks, building blocks.
Okay.
You just orchestrate those building blocks as a process flow diagram per se,
Okay.
and connect the dots properly. That is for few platforms like Mind Studio, even that is not needed. You give a prompt, it creates that entire workflow for you. You can tweak wherever you want to tweak, else you need not do that also.
Oh, okay.
So these platforms are great. So one should definitely get started with them.
Yeah. And do you see product management getting influenced by this, by getting an AI agent in terms of their day-to-day work?
I won't say exactly AI agent, but AI tools being used in the workflow is a huge boon in my view. You can, as I was saying earlier, you can use many tools that are there today, or use these Mind Studio and Diffy or any other platform also to actually create that workflow and create a prototype out of it and showcase it to your team members, your customers. Earlier, if you even had to create a prototype where, let's say, if you are dependent on a developer or so, now you are no longer dependent on them. You can use these platforms because they offer you a decent UI. It's not in line with your brand guidelines or design guidelines, but still it is a UI that you can see. Use that. Or there are tool platforms like Vercel V0, or for that matter bold.new and all, where you can actually give a prompt and create a web interface out of it immediately. So use those to at least express yourself to your customers as well as your internal team members. That way, the biggest challenge in product management or in general is gap in communication that comes up.
So how do you give, I would say, some flesh to your idea?
Correct.
Translating your idea into something demonstrable.
Exactly. That's what these tools are enabling you to do. And it's important that you leverage and provide that input to the design team also, or dev team also. Because again, you as a product manager won't be able to think of 10,000 scenarios that might come up.
Right.
But the tech team and the design team can think of them and start saying that, hey, this is great. I think we missed out on these 10 things. That's the value add they will bring in. And then it becomes a teamwork that you are actually delivering the right outcome to your business as well as customers.
Does this look like some kind of a low fidelity prototypes, or?
No, it is a beautiful UI that you can create. It might not follow your brand guidelines. You can do that also by making your prompt much more nuanced, saying I need it to be in purple, blue, black, whatever colors that you want to use.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
These tools are good.
So, just following up on that, right? One of the things which I hear, right, we have I think in the last few years, we have had more than 300 unicorns in the SaaS world, right? Now, one of the key things which I hear, impact of AI on SaaS is that they can go more deeper. There could be more hyper-verticalizations. I also hear something called as vertical AI agents. Can you elaborate more on that? What is your view on that?
Sure. At a broad level, my view is we are going towards that N=1 personalization sort of a thing from a consumer use case. Same thing being applied in the vertical space or at an industry level. You are trying to customize the solutions that would suit the requirements of every industry or as niche as it gets. So earlier, the way one used to say you have to become much narrower or focused on a particular niche and then expand for the startups. The same thing now being in the AI world is being called as vertical AI or hyper-focused verticals per se. Just as an example, 11 Labs, which started as a voice platform, now they have, initially their only focus was making voice being available or voice being cloned and you being given an API which can answer in voice or conversational experience as such. Now they have expanded to giving it for a podcast being generated directly on their platform. So two people talking at the same time. So the point is they've started with a very narrowed focus of just ensuring that your voice can be cloned or so. Now they are expanding further into different areas within the same space of voice. So their focus area is just voice. Now Runway is another startup which is in the media space or creating videos from a single prompt of sorts, or creating Hollywood level videos is what their target as such is. Now their only focus area is not just voice or images, but the mix of both being taken into account. So they are focused on ensuring that the quality of the video is drastically better. In the same manner, there are few startups which are focusing on dubbing as a use case, lip syncs being another use case. So the point is, you can't solve all the problems. While you can solve every problem, you can't solve all the problems by yourself. So you are focusing on one area and trying to solve a particular problem. So like in healthcare, there are startups which are focusing just on the radiology aspect of it and seeing how I can use AI to improve the diagnostic rate or reduce the time it takes for a report to get generated. All of that being focused, and they are just focusing on that one specific area only. So the thing is, while there are many horizontal platforms that are already there, these platforms which are now coming up are focusing on a particular vertical and trying to solve the problem for them. Like some of them are focusing on BFSI alone. They're saying, hey, and that too B aspect only banking. We'll help SBI. Let them be our major customer, and we'll also onboard other banks for their customer support space, for example. So thing is, that way you are at least getting a foot in the door and then trying to expand rather than trying to be a holistic platform for everyone, because there are other players who are already doing well in that market. So that's, I think, is the reason for vertical AI.
So instead, what we are saying is that instead of going 1 mile wide, go 1 mile
correct
down deep, so that you are able to solve this problem. But do you think that might constrain their market size which they can attack?
I would say once you have established in one particular area, the adjacent areas can be expanded into. The challenge with horizontal platforms right now is the big techs are in that space already. So you can't outcompete them that easily. They are platforms that, let's say, Microsoft recently launched Copilot Studio, where you can go and create copilots or agents by yourself. So if you have them, or let's say Salesforce coming with their Agent Force, and the second version also being released, there are these huge giants are already getting into that market. Now, if you are trying to compete with them, you might not last longer. Rather, if you go deep into one specific area and solve that problem well, then you can maybe expand into adjacent industries also. Let's say if you start with transportation as a vertical, but then you might get into warehousing also. Something like that can happen if you are doing as a vertical focused one. But yes, there is always that challenge, not just in case of vertical AI. Any startup, if they are niching down on a particular area, if the TAM is not that high, then there is always that challenge. But at least here you have if you are actually having few clients, you can make it a sustainable business out of it per se.
Correct. Yeah. No, I think, and I do believe hyper-personalization, hyper-localization, hyper-verticalization is going to be the way forward. So yeah, and let me now probably take up the finale question here, Harsha. Is that now with this whole the tsunami thing that we were talking about earlier, one of the biggest discussion is that should India develop their own foundational model? What's your take on that?
Personally, I think initially, at least, I never thought we should build it ourselves. We can easily use them and build things out of it. But after seeing DeepSeek's answers for few of the questions, where is Arunachal Pradesh and all of that, you would see the answers being, or there is a lot of cultural nuance that we miss out when we are not building it ourselves. Right. So now, if we are building it by ourselves, then we can incorporate those aspects and democratize them also. That's the only reason I think we might need it. But from a business standpoint, frankly, I don't see much of a thing coming out other than the local languages being taken care of. So let's say, if, like they say in India, for every 50 kilometers the language change and 100 kilometers the water change. The same thing, if you have these many languages coming into play, and there is not much literature available of every language out there. So we have to create that data set for it to be able to be done. Bashni project by the government actually is trying to do this. Sarvam AI is another startup which is trying to do this in a great way, and they are doing great job in it. But if I have to use a platform today, I'll still be using, let's say, an OpenAI or a Claude, because most of the problems that we are trying to solve is still in an English as a language problem statements. But once we get to that stage of hyper personalization, the way you were saying earlier, then we would need these point solutions at regional language level being made available for us to handle.
To be able to relate, to be able to train,
Correct.
to be able to solve for those problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I think I do definitely see that in the coming era, India will have a lot to contribute, and there will be a lot of use cases being built from here.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No doubt.
All right. Thank you so much, Harsha.
Thank you.
It was a very, very deep conversation that how AI is changing things around us.
Thank you.
And I would say the evolution continues, and probably we will see more details in the coming era.
Absolutely.
Coming weeks.
Interesting times ahead.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep.